Hey, how are you? We are live again from my place. And a couple of things to point out. It is an extremely busy day for me. Those of you who follow my channel for some time know that we've been approaching 100,000 subscribers. We're going to cross that probably while you and I are talking. That created a dilemma for me because I had decided to put up a video to commemorate the 100,000th subscriber. And so I shot that video this morning, and I've been watching the clock, and I realized, oh, it's going to happen during my live feed, but I can't move the live feed because I promised to do it at 1 o'clock. So I'm interfering with myself, and I'm actually going to have the video go up after the live feed. In case you got a bunch of notices from me this morning, one notice was for the live feed, another one is for the premiere at 2:15 p.m. today of the 100,000 subscriber story video. I promised you a special story I've never told this many people before, and so that'll be up in just a little while. So there you go. And Rob DeHaven asks about the Crazy Town lawsuit. I did mention last week during this live broadcast that I shot a series of videos that are a series involving a single story called Welcome to Crazy Town. And Crazy Town is the joke name I gave for it because I'm being sued in a crazy lawsuit. So I started shooting the videos during the lawsuit. I never mentioned it to anybody here that I was doing this, so that I could then put these out, and the videos are shot in real time in that sense. So it'll be more interesting and more clear that way. But the first episode went up this past week. The second episode goes up this week, and so on and so forth as the road goes along. So that's the one thing. Some people who have not been here in a little while might not have realized, but behind me, I've got two bookshelves that are stacked with the Oxford English Dictionary. A very, very generous viewer of mine sent that to me as a gift. I complained about having a compact edition, and always having to read it with a magnifying glass. And so he sent me that and said, "You're welcome." I said, "Thank you." So I had to redo the studio. That's why the studio has been rotated 45 degrees. That's the only reason. There's no other Masonic messages going on here or anything like that. So there you go. So we can get back to what we do here every day. And so we can talk about this. Afternoon, Steve from Lenoir, North Carolina, back in the house. And I'm probably mispronouncing that. You know, anytime you see a word that looks like it's French, but it's someplace in America, it's almost always going to be mispronounced by the locals or differently pronounced. Let's put it that way. So snow tomorrow night in Denver, 54 degrees right now. Yeah, we actually had snow a couple weeks ago here in Michigan, but it's all gone now. So this afternoon, I've actually got to go out and rake leaves. I have a thing that looks like a lawnmower. It actually mulches them and bags them for me, but I got to sit, I had 30 or 40 bags last year of leaves, so I might burn them this year. We'll see. How late is too late to pursue a career in law? Good question. I had a woman in my law school class, I believe was in her late 60s, possibly 70s. We had to estimate because no one had the gumption to ask her. But the only thing about it is you got to look at it and go, it's a cost benefit analysis. Is it worth the investment for how much time you'll have to practice on the other side of your degree? So you get a law degree, get the degree, take the bar, pass the bar, and then become admitted to practice law. And if you do that at 65, recognize the fact that you're going to be starting a law practice at 65. So is it worth the money that you invest at the other end of that? So yeah, it's different for everybody. I graduated law school when I was 29, and at the time I felt old. Oh, how silly that was. So Randy Mann, love your show. Thanks. Hello, Steve from Nightdale, North Carolina. Again, never heard of Nightdale. I love the Carolinas. Spent a lot of time in the Charlotte area researching Bobby Isaac and his K&K Daytona. Venture Electronics, hi from Canada. I've been getting a lot of love from Canada lately, and I greatly appreciate that. Many people have noticed that the voice, the woman who does the intros and the outros to my my videos, is a Canadian. I outed her very early on that. And so a lot of people have been trying to guess where she may have worked. She's worked in a bunch of different places in the media. So far, no one's quite guessed that yet, but I do appreciate all of my Canadian friends. Hello from Hickory, North Carolina. Are our ready? Art thou ready? Got it. Okay. Hello from Hickory, North Carolina. Hello. I love Hickory. That, of course, is where Bobby Isaac spent his early years racing. The Hickory Motor Speedway. It's paved now. A lot of the locals got very upset because they finally paved it. It was one of the last tracks to get paved that they actually raced the Grand National race is on, a very, very small track. But I guess back in the days of dirt, it was the place to be if you if you wanted to race. I've spoken to guys who drove back then when it was a dirt track, and it's a little bowl, very, very small track. And then there's a grandstand. And they said that by the end of the race, everyone was covered in dirt, not just the cars, not just the drivers, but the spectators all the way back up, and probably people out in the parking lot just covered in that red dust dirt that would come off the track. So you got to really admire the old school NASCAR guys. Corn Farmer Matt, is it hard to do a self-expungement in Michigan with only one felony on your record? Depends on the age of the felony. I actually did a video on expungements, and I talked specifically about Michigan and then said, by the way, it's going to vary from state to state. But if enough time has passed, it's doable. But the only thing is there's a bunch of paperwork you got to file. You got to file an affidavit. You got to get your fingerprints done. You got to get your criminal record from the state and a bunch of other stuff. And it's probably easier to have a lawyer walk you through it, but it's doable. I've heard of people doing it, but it's a lot of work. And it's one of those things where, yeah, if an attorney charges you $1,000 or a couple $1,000 to do it, it's probably going to save you several $1,000s of a hassle, unless you literally are unemployed and got nothing better to do with your time, in which case, yeah. But I'd much rather just, in that case, it's kind of like plumbing. I mean, I can fix some things plumbing if I wanted to. I don't want to. So I pay someone else to do it. Hey, Steve from Melbourne, Australia, Duncan Campbell. And that sounds like a good Australian name too. I'm glad you're checking in. I love when people check in from around the world. And I've mentioned before that I do a radio show with Chris Goodsell, Road Ramblings. And about once or twice a month, you will hear me on the radio in Australia. So there you go. Hello from Pahrump, Nevada. Your COPPA video is excellent. When is the next I'm being sued video coming out? First of all, I hope I'm pronouncing Pahrump correctly. I'm curious to know where that name came from. I'm fascinated by place names. The COPPA video came out yesterday. I was talking about how COPPA, that's the law that says that the internet sites aren't allowed to gather data from children who are 13 or younger. And YouTube has basically pushed the onus of that onto the channel creators like me. And we've got to say whether or not our stuff is directed to kids or not. And so the key is, if it's directed towards kids, you got it towards kids, you say so. But then it changes how YouTube will handle your stuff. But if you were to theoretically make a mistake and say my stuff's not directed to kids, and it is, theoretically you can be fined by the Federal Trade Commission for quite a lot of money. So a lot of people are complaining and freaking out like the sky is falling. And I saw so many videos and I had people asking me. I finally had to make one myself. So it went up yesterday. And so I personally think that it's not as big of a deal as people are making it out to be. But, it is going to affect some people. And obviously people who do like toy unboxing videos are going to have to, dub their stuff as aimed at kids, directed to kids. I'm lucky. No one thinks this show is aimed at kids. Some people argue it's not even aimed at people. So hello from Alabama, Donald. Hey, thanks for checking in. Never been to Alabama. I'm sorry. Been to Alabama a couple times. And I've been to Talladega. I don't know, that slipped my mind, but I've been there. So beautiful down there. Of course, it's hot and humid quite a bit. So similar to parts of Florida. Just got in from the beach in Portsmouth. It is dark out there. Okay. Pahrump. You pronounced it in Nevada perfectly. It means water rock, an indigenous phrase. Not sure which tribe. That's interesting. And we have a lot of native names in in Michigan too. So we got places like, Escanaba, you got to learn how to say them. Is that a model of a Tucker car? Because Tucker was very advanced for its time. Yeah, the cars behind me are a Tucker, a Ferrari, a Chrysler Turbine car, and a Dodge Charger Daytona. I've never written a book about the Ferrari, but a guy sent that to me after I told the story. I had a neighbor who owned a Ferrari GTO when I was growing up. Really, really cool car. But I wrote a book about Tucker, the Turbine car, and the Wing cars. So those are all an homage to things I've written. The Titanic model is just something I thought was cool. Never wrote a book about the Titanic or its sinking. Hello from the Twin Cities. Have you ever visited us? Yes. I've been to Minneapolis, St. Paul. I've also been to Duluth quite a few times. especially, because I spend a lot of time along the Lake Superior edge there. And I've got relatives in Minnesota. I've got a couple cousins and an aunt and uncle who live up there as well. Going from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan to Wisconsin and Minnesota is actually not that far. In the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, you got more Green Bay Packer fans than you do Detroit Lions fans. And it's not just because the Packers are better than the Lions. It's because they're closer, at least geographically. So just started watching the channel. This is eHonda 720. I do a weekly chat on my channel where we take a logical, fact-based look at something. I missed it. It's gone. It's gone. I'm sure there's probably some way I could slow down the feed over here, but I'm a busy man. I haven't got time. By the way, I often make a lot of comments that are Simpsons references, and every now and then people catch them. I'm really surprised, but the "I'm a busy man, I haven't got time to check" is a reference to the crazy Texan. He brings a car to the county fair, and he's telling everybody that it was Adolf Hitler's personal car. And then he says, and they tell me his body might be in the trunk, but I'm a busy man and I haven't got time to check. So there you go. Who wins today, Patriots or Cowboys? You know something? I don't follow NFL all that much, but I'll admit to you that I like Tom Brady. I'm a University of Michigan fan, so I kind of have to go there, So if you click and hold on a comment, I believe it will hold it from scrolling away. Yeah, good to know now. Casey Menke. I saw an article the other day that the Tucker convertible prototype is for sale in Texas, and the guy wants $3 million for it. Yeah, and by the way, when you say Tucker prototype, you need to put the word prototype in quotes because the experts are not unanimous on whether or not that thing is real. And they've brought that to auction several times, never gotten their asking price for it. So there you go. Mike Gertz, hello from West Michigan. If you're in Michigan, you got to be more specific. I know the state very, very well. So tell me where you are in Michigan, especially. By the way, we just hit 400 in the room right now, and I appreciate that. We've broken 400 before, not 500, but we've never broken 400 this quickly. So there you go. Mike Gertz, M Go Blue. Got that right, my friends. Great game yesterday, by the way. And somebody pointed out, they just said, hey, your subscriber base is going up. And I'll tell you right now that as of this moment, it's 99,715. So I have a video set to premiere at 2:15, a little over an hour from right now. So when this live feed ends, I'm going to close it and run it the other room where I've got a better computer monitor I can sit at. And I'm going to then do a premiere of the video that I promised you for the day I hit 100,000 subscribers. So there you go. 404, viewer count not found. There you go. Brian Larson, what's happening with the Crazy Town case? Well, I can only tell you that the first episode went up this past week. Second episode goes up this week. Do I know where Pentwater is? It's over here, right? Someplace over here? I've had people ask me about the Crazy Town. What I can tell you, I said in the first video that I was going to shoot the video and not release it until I knew how it ended. And I'm smiling right now, so you can guess it has a happy ending from my viewpoint. But I don't want to ruin it. Petersburg, near Cabela's and Dundee. I know where that is. That's a little bit further down this way. That's down this way. So I'm a little confused. By the way, I have to mention this. I haven't been doing any mail videos for a while, but I do still get cool stuff in the mail. So I feel like I'm obligated to point this out to you once in a while. But in Michigan, we always go like this, and I go, well, Detroit is here, and St. Ignace is up here, and so on. In Michigan, we can do this. And then there's a thing called the Upper Peninsula, which goes up here, so it's like this, and the Keweenaw Peninsula is up here. Well, someone sent me the oven mitt that is, in fact, Michigan. So here we go. This is Michigan on one side and the Upper Peninsula on the other side. So there you go. So in case you're curious, this is more detailed than my hand is. So you got Sheboygan, Rogers City, Presque Isle, Alpena, Harrisville, Oscoda, East Tawas, Caseville, Bad Axe, Michigan right there, my friends. Bad Axe, Michigan. And then over here, Holland, South Haven, Paw Paw, Benton Harbor, New Buffalo, and so on. Dowagiac. I know how to pronounce that one. Dowagiac. possibly the strangest place name in Michigan in terms of how it's spelled versus how it's pronounced. It looks like Dowagiac, but it's Dowagiac. Don't ask me how I know. I just know. And by the way, that was a gift from Dean in Boise, Idaho. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate the gifts. I really do. So there you go. Your neighbor in Davison checking in. Zagnuts rule. And yes, they are still available. You know, the jury is out and will always be out on Zagnuts. You all remember when you were a kid trick-or-treating, there's always some neighbor who handed out something that you were convinced they were doing it because they didn't like children. And I remember the family that handed out, religious pamphlets, trick or treat. Yeah, here you go. You're going to hell. But I remember the woman who'd hand out the Zagnuts, and I'm like, she hates us. She hates all of us. There you go. The mitt is cool. Yes, it is. Chicken Joe from Sheboygan. You peers sound more Canadians. Joseph, mama. You're right. And that's the funny thing is they often talk about the Upper Peninsula or the UP accent or the Yooper accent. And it does sound a lot like Canadians. You'll hear a lot of Yoopers saying "a" as the exclamation point at the end of a sentence. "A." And there's a big debate about how much of that came over from people who spoke another language. A lot of Finns, for instance, settled in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. They already have a certain accent from the cadence of their language. But then there's a lot of it that is rooted in Canada. And because there's a lot of people who came over from Canada as well. So it all intermingles and intermarries. And so the Yooper accent is probably a little of all of the above. There you go. 450 watching. Got that right. We're at 465 right now. And I'm going to try really hard not to keep looking at my phone because we are going to cross 100,000 subscribers sometime today. Hello from Paducah, another one of those great towns. It's like Kokomo. People just say, oh, yeah, it's for Paducah. Will the UP go back to Wisconsin? From Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. It won't, but I'll tell you right now that I wrote a book about Douglas Houghton. Douglas Houghton was a surveyor who traveled throughout the state of Michigan up till 1845 when he passed away. And he helped draw the line that defined the border between Wisconsin and Michigan in the Upper Peninsula. And we did to Wisconsin what Ohio did to us when they took the Toledo Strip. So when we got to draw the line, we actually drew it over farther than we should have and kind of said, hey, what are you going to do about it? We're a state, you're not. So Wisconsin was kind enough to not put up a fight. We never went to war with Wisconsin, although we did go to war with Ohio in the Toledo War. But another story altogether. We are at 480 right now in the room. If we break 500 today, it will be like Festivus because, like I said, today I'm going to break 100,000 subscribers on the channel. And by the way, be sure to watch the video. I've got it set to premiere at 2:15. And as promised, I said that once the video airs, I'm going to have a giveaway going on with that as well. So there's a town from Wisconsin I couldn't possibly pronounce. Wapaka? It's like Waukesha, but with a P and a C. I'm live in England. 1,500 years of law. Yeah, we get our law from you guys, the common law. So it goes way back. I've been to London 3 times, and I've walked by the courts in London, and they look such beautiful buildings. Never went in, and so I've always thought it'd be nice to go to England and London and actually watch some court sessions take place. But my fear is that they'd be just as boring as the stuff here in America. If you walk in just off the street and pick some random courtroom, the stuff going on in the courtroom is not that exciting. There is no Wisconsin-Michigan border wall. That's true. What's crazy, of course, is that the time zone line goes along the border like this. And if you're driving US 2 west out of Escanaba, and then when it cuts up like that, you actually find yourself going back and forth between the time zones on a straight line, which makes no sense at all. But that's what map makers and time zone line setters do. They cause stuff like that. Boom, 505, baby, right there. 505 people in the room. There you go. And I'm pointing that out because I like the U-boat, the U-505 at the Chicago Museum. So there we go. So, of course, now we're going to have to do this for like 6, 7, 8, and so on. So somebody asks about Battle Axe and ask why it's called Battle Axe. By the way, the name of the town Bad Axe, B-A-D, next word A-X-E, was named after a hatchet that somebody had found at a campsite at that spot in the earliest days of the area. And they made a note in their journal that they'd found a campsite. Somebody else had been here. They left behind some stuff, including a hatchet, but it was a bad axe. And that, for whatever reason, stuck. The word campsite could have worked previously, previously Michigan. I don't know. So there you go. What are your thoughts on the Second Amendment? Honda 720 keeps asking me that for some odd reason. And the Second Amendment's right there underneath Amendment number 1 and right above number 3. And it's a pretty straightforward amendment, but I can tell you that people like to argue about it more than any of the other 9 in the Bill of Rights. And by the way, now for me to look out the window, I have to turn it much harder than I used to. So that'll probably break me of the habit. But the Second Amendment is one of those things where most people have made up their minds what they think it means. And so debating it doesn't actually move the ball down the field. All it does is it riles people up. So if you have a specific question about the Second Amendment, I'd be more inclined to answer it, but I don't really know how I can expound on what my thoughts are on an amendment. I mean, what are my thoughts on the First Amendment, the Fifth Amendment? I mean, there's entire books, thousands of books written on each of these. So my thoughts, they wouldn't fill 1,000 books, but they'd take up more than the time we have right here. So greetings from Tony Turtle. Yeah, but from where? D. Harkins, have you been to Mackinac Island? Yeah, several times. In fact, I was there not this past summer, the summer before. I walked across the Mackinac Bridge this past fall. I did that on Labor Day the last 2 years in a row. Mackinac Island's a pretty cool place. That has history going back to the 1700s, maybe even earlier, in terms of European descendants being there. There's an old fort there. And of course, they got fudge. Got to mention that. And horse-drawn conveyances, because they don't allow motor vehicles on the island unless a dignitary visits who insists on them. But generally speaking, no, they don't have cars out there. They have horses. So it's a fun place to visit. But it's in Lake Huron, and you can see it as you cross the Mackinac Bridge. I drive by it all the time. I've just been out there 2 or 3 times in the last 5 or 10 years. So, Honda 720, what are your thoughts on red flag laws? And there you go. That's a good question. I've done an entire video on red flag laws. Red flag laws are a major problem because it, in essence, says that you can be... you can get in trouble not because you have broken the law, but because somebody suspects you might break the law. And so if you could be arrested because you might break the law, you can see why that's obviously open for abuse. So there's a real concern there. But I've also seen different ways they're worded in different states. And of course, and just to be honest here, you have to admit that we know where these laws come from, because there's always a situation where there's a crime and something happens and it's atrocious. Somebody goes and kills 12 people or 24 people or something. And they go and interview the neighbors and they're like, oh yeah, we knew the guy was crazy. Yeah, he's always talking about killing people and he's always buying weapons. He's always out back, like shooting animals. And he's always, threatening people with his guns. And people are like, why didn't you do anything? Like, what, and they're like, what could we do? And so it's an attempt to solve that problem. But is that the correct way of solving it? And I don't think so. I don't think so. So I'd have to take a look at it, a specific one, and see how it's written. I only looked at this in general, but I have looked at that, and I did a video on it entirely. So look up Leto and red flag laws on YouTube. You'll find me. So Honda 720 says he agrees with me, and thanks for answering the question. There you go. Don't panic, which of course is a reference to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, because that's what's written on the cover. Asked what's written on the cover. Asked me if I'm coming to Connecticut anytime soon. I've never been to Connecticut, and I apologize. I was just talking to somebody last week about how I've never been to the northeast corner of America: Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Connecticut, Rhode Island. I'd love to visit up there, but I have not made it up there yet, so I will one of these days. So can you tell us if you've ever heard of or read about some... oh, boy. I got to read faster, my friends. So... Delaware or New Jersey. I've been to New Jersey, visiting New York, of course. I was joking with somebody the other day and I said, I've been to New York, and I meant New York City. And somebody said about visiting someplace and staying someplace else. And I go, yeah, it's kind of like going to New York and staying in Parsippany. You can do that. In fact, I did that once on business. I stayed in Parsippany, drove into New York. Another story altogether. Peter Brinkley, greetings from England. Hey, how are you? Got to get back there. It's been a couple years since I've been there, but I would like to get back there again. Andrew Allen, you're always welcome in Maine. Yeah, I've heard that Maine is a lot like the Upper Peninsula of Michigan along the shoreline where it's with Lake Superior, except of course that Maine has an ocean, but a little more mountainous maybe, but nice rocky outcroppings. And I've seen images of it. By the way, as some of you may know, I bought a Peloton. That's actually my Peloton shirt. You can't really see the logo here, but that's a Peloton logo. And the Peloton comes with a screen, and you can join classes that are led by instructors, or you can ride the scenic rides that somebody's filmed on a going along like where a bike could go. And so I recently did a ride. It was a half-hour ride along the shoreline of Maine. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to go there. So I've done other rides. I've done rides in France and Germany and San Francisco and the Northwest and all that. But the one in Maine in particular, I'm like, oh, this is cool. I really need to get there. So the more people that come into the room, the more times they have to recycle the web browser. Yeah, well, I suppose that's one of the problems with success. 550 people in the room. So we have got it over the limit. Drone video. What do you think of the Tesla truck? You know, I saw Tesla, and the only thing I saw was him demonstrating the break-proof glass by breaking it. And that's one of the things about Tesla is they don't advertise. They just get publicity. It's genius. They have no advertising budget. But of course it can backfire. And so I thought the truck looked like it was designed by like a 7th grader. It had too many jagged, harsh angles to it. But I assume that's more of a thing that they're going to work on prototype-wise or something. But I mean, I love their vehicles. I think the Tesla cars are beautiful. So that truck looked a little too space-agey for me. I didn't really think it was quite ready for prime time, as they say. Hi, Steve from Suffolk in UK. David Watt. Glad you're here. Thanks for checking in. What do I think about the success of the Tesla all-electric vehicles? I'm all for it. I think it'll be sad if there ever comes a day where you can't get gasoline for your piston-powered engine, or that it becomes so difficult that it's like trying to find steam for your steam car. But I would love it if we ever got the point, for instance, where half the cars on the road are electric and half are gas, because it would cut down on pollution. Presumably, demand for gasoline would drop. I realize they can play with the prices and so on, but I've got no problem with them. I think electric cars are great, and I think they have more promise than many people were thinking, like even say 5 or 10 years ago. Battery technology has come a long way. It's going to continue going a long way. So there you go. Hello from Finland. Antti Partanen. Nice to watch Finnish common sense fight against weird U.S. laws. Thank you very much, sir. And I have to admit, I don't speak Finnish. I wish I did, but I do have people following me from Finland because my last name, Lehto, Lehto, which is pronounced Lehto, is Finnish, but I don't speak Finnish, which is sad. So greetings from Wilmington, North Carolina, where it is 65 degrees. Yeah, Jay Leno bought all the surplus old stock steam for his cars. I don't remember if I've ever told the story, but I've been to Jay Leno's garage twice. He wrote the forwards to 2 of my books, the book on Tucker and the book on the turbine car. And he has a turbine car. And while I was there, we were talking about alternative, motivators besides gas engines. And he said, have you ever ridden in a steam car? And I had to admit and say, no, I have not. And he says, do you want to go for a ride in a steam car? I go, I'd love to go for a ride in a steam car. And he wheels out this 1908 White's steam car that looks like something you see in a parade. It looks like a big fire engine, but with an open, body, all kinds of brass on a big old flugelhorns on it. And he climbs underneath it with a cigarette lighter to light the pilot light. He's down there turning knobs and stuff like it's a plumbing experiment. He climbs, he's doing it also by himself. He climbs up, and I turn to a mechanic, and I go, dude, why didn't you do that? And he goes, no. He goes, Jay loves this stuff. So he then gets a garden hose, and he's putting water in the radiator, where the but for the steam for the engine, and fires it up, builds a head of steam, and off down the road we go. And he's explaining to me how the pedals work, and how the steam engine part of it works. And I believe one of the something in control of the accelerator was on the inside of the steering wheel, so you steer with one hand, and go with the other hand, and then you're controlling I think you're controlling the steam engine with one foot and the brakes with another. I mean, it was crazy. We're driving around downtown Burbank in a steam engine on a Saturday afternoon with Jay Leno. It's one of those things. You said, Steve, back when you're in high school, where do you see yourself in 30 years? That sentence, not a single element of that sentence would have popped into my head. Driving around downtown Burbank on a Saturday afternoon in a steam truck with Jay Leno at the wheel. There you go. So, do you think VW will give Tesla a run for its money? That's an interesting question, because a lot of the bigger companies were hesitant to get into electric cars. I know that General Motors launched the Volt, for instance, and Nissan Leaf and so on. But a lot of the car companies appeared to be doing it more as kind of like just stick our toe in the pool and then see where it goes. And it looks like Volkswagen and a couple other companies are actually going, you know something? We're in. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, because Tesla's done a very good job of it as a startup, to just ground up, build a new car and start mass producing them. But on the other hand, when somebody with the resources of a Volkswagen comes along and says, yes, we're getting into this big time, that'll be interesting to see what they can accomplish. And I'm looking forward to the day when I don't have to take so many phone calls from people who say, I bought a vehicle and the engine and the transmission, they start describing these wacky problems that don't happen with electric cars. Motor technology is pretty solid right about now. So the idea that a car company like Ford can build an engine and then a transmission and put it in a car, and you have the problems that you have with the dual clutch transmission, you won't have those kinds of problems with an electric car. I mean, I'm sure they'll have their own problems, but not those kinds of problems. So we'll see what happens. There are only two genders. The Mustang EV is horrible. The Mustang EV is a joke. And this is an example where a car company made a really, really dumb decision, and you want to find the room full of people who all voted on it and say, what's wrong with you people? They launched a 4-door vehicle that's all electric. It's an SUV, and they decided to call it a Mustang. And you had me up until you called it a Mustang. There's nothing wrong with building an SUV. There's nothing wrong with building a 4-door. There's nothing wrong with making it all electric. But why would you call that a Mustang? And names, a name of something, a brand name has value. And when you slap that on a piece of garbage or something that's so different than what it used to be, you're diluting the value of that name. And so the idea that you're going to put the Mustang name onto a 4-door SUV and go, what are you people thinking? So it's insanity. I mean, I've yet to hear anybody say, yes, that was a good idea, except for the few people at Ford who probably came up with it. And I'm assuming that some of them even have changed their minds now, but we'll see. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. The Mustang went through some doldrums back in the late 70s, early 80s, some really, really ugly cars. But the Mustang had come back. The last few years of Mustangs are beautiful. I'm not even a Ford guy, and I liked them. So, by the way, people go, Steve, how can you not be a Ford guy? You own 2 Ford Explorers. I consider myself to be whatever guy it is that you liked in NASCAR. And in that respect, I'm a Chrysler guy, Mopar guy. So there you go. We're at 589 right now. It would be nice to break 600, but these things happen. Hey, Zoltan, Tesla registered the trademark Cybertruck last week. There you go. Wait, nobody had done that yet? Or maybe they just figured they'd break it out and do that. So there you go. A Mustang is a Mustang. You'd think so until it becomes a 4-door SUV. Steve, heya. Sean Avalon. Over 600. We are over 600. There you go. This is why I say I've got the greatest audience on the planet Earth. I don't know what the audience is on other planets, but on planet Earth, because today I'm going to break 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, 99,802, and I have 600 people in the room right now. So Like I said before, in a little over a half hour from now, a video of mine that I've already shot is going to premiere at 2:15 Eastern time. And that's the video I put up. And I said I'd put up a video when I hit 100,000 subscribers. I was estimating it would happen around 2:15. I hope that's close. So I didn't want to have it conflict with this live feed right now. And this is a symbol for conflict. So there you go. I'm having my girlfriend sub right now to help. Sean, thank you very much. You're doing the Lord's work. If you know people who haven't subscribed, tell them, just help us out here. We need to help this guy. It's kind of funny. I've actually, people say, Steve, how come you don't tell people to subscribe or give you a thumbs up or anything like that? I'm like, if people do, great. If they don't, but is me telling them I'm going to do it, going to actually do it? But I've got close to, I think, over 900 videos now that are up on YouTube, which I admit is way too many. But my thinking is, if you sat there and watched a whole bunch of them and it hasn't occurred to you to subscribe, at least you watched a whole bunch of them, So, hey, Steve, check out my comment at 125. Yeah, about 10 minutes ago, so I missed it. When is Crazy Land #2 coming? That'll be Wednesday. I believe it'll go up Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time, and I will premiere that as well. So if you don't know what the premiere is, when you post a video on YouTube, you can dub it a premiere, and the first time it airs, it sends out notices to everybody and says, hey, this video is going up at this time. Log in, and while we're watching the video in real time together, I'll be there. There'll be a dialogue box on the side of the screen, just like there is now, and I'll be there dialoguing with you, okay? I know that's a funny way to use that verb, but it's true. And so I'll be dialoguing with you, and so that will be doing, but the good news is it sends out a different kind of notice, and more people get that notice. Somebody just asked me where the $100 bill is. Sometimes it's hard to see, okay? But lately I've been utilizing the OEDs, so, but like, see there, it's not obviously a $100 bill. So it's always there. It's always there. Did you get any South Dakota t-shirts, Wayne? It's funny, meth, state motto of South Dakota. And they're going to have t-shirts made with that on it. I've had about a dozen people promise me they're coming, but I did not get out to the P.O. box yesterday. So if they're there, they're there. I'm hoping I'll get one for this upcoming week. So we'll see. But I'm really hoping to get, if everybody came through who promised me one, I'd have enough to wear for 2 weeks straight. And I'm actually thinking about, if they come in different colors, I'm going to treat them like they're different shirts, meaning I might wear the same shirt 3 days in a row, just different colors, because I think it's that funny that that kind of money on a dumb slogan like that. Somebody just mentioned the microphone collection again. I worked in radio for many, many years, a disc jockey before I went to law school, talk show host when I got out of law school. And the microphones are an homage to my time in radio. I just realized this one here probably look a little better if I turned it right there. How's that? A little better. Not all of those are broadcast microphones, but they remind me of being in radio. So I've had probably 3 or 4 of those were given to me by viewers also. I bought a few off of eBay, trade shows, a few other places. But I also have about a dozen more that are not up there. Either they don't have the right kind of stands, or I ran out of room, obviously. But like, for instance, the microphone that John Popper holds a harmonica up against in Blues Traveler, I've got one of those, but I don't have the right kind of stand for it. It doesn't look right. So, but I do have a bunch of other microphones besides just those. So, Tony, are you going to guest DJ again? Yes, I am. And here's the thing. The fine folks, WLLW, The Wall, Shut Up and Rock, in Geneva, New York on Lake Seneca, told me I have an open invitation to go back out there and play the classic rock anytime I want, and I am going to take them up on that because I had so much fun last time. I'm going to do that again, and I'm probably also going to do some guest DJ slots elsewhere. Some other people contacted me and said, Steve, you're welcome to come here and do it as well. I had so much fun doing that. It was a blast. But I think I'm going to mention something right now. And I'm always talking to people about different things, different ideas I have. And I don't know if this is going to fly or not, but I'm going to mention it now just in case somebody in the audience can help me out here. The one other thing I'd really like to do is I would like to speak at a commencement somewhere, high school or college, Okay. Now I'm capable of speaking coherently as an adult, saying very, very meaningful things for 5 or 10 minutes, which I think is pretty much what most good commencement speakers do. And I've been to many graduations, and I've had a few myself where I graduated, and I've seen some commencement speakers who are pretty good, and I've seen some who are I'm pretty sure I could do a good commencement speech. So if anybody out there is the person in charge of booking people for commencement speeches, okay, just think about this for a second. Don't think Steve Leto, YouTube guy, okay? Think Steve Leto, he's a lawyer with 28 years of experience helping people, law professor for 10 years, teaching people how to help other people, and, graduate degree and undergraduate degree, so educated, and written 13, 14 books. So I'm a fairly educated kind of guy. And I've got some advice that I could give, and I think in a fairly entertaining and appropriate manner. So if anybody out there has a place that could use a good commencement speaker, and Stephen Bain says, will you come to Phoenix, Arizona? I will go anywhere in North America for that. Okay. So if somebody in North America, that's Canada, that's the United States, and that, of course, would be Mexico. Although I don't know, I can only give the speech in English because that's the only language I know. So I will do that anywhere. So if anybody legitimately can hook me up with that, like I said, I'd be happy to do a high school. I'd be happy to do a college. I'd be happy to do a law school. I'd be happy to speak anywhere that there's actually a legitimate group of people graduating who could use some advice from a guy in his mid-50s who's seen a lot of things and has actually processed it and can pass that information along. Please hook me up. My contact information is at the end of every single video. It's steve@letoslaw.com, and we'll talk. So there you go. Steve, where you live, do the police still write tickets at the scene of accidents? It depends. There are some jurisdictions near me where if you call them and say we've been in a car accident, they basically tell you it's almost like a wrong number. But some of the less busy areas will do it. So it depends, because I know that there's some places where if you get in an accident, they'll go, hey, if there's no injuries, too bad. Exchange information and go your own way. And then what happens is you call your insurance company and go, hey, I was in an accident. They go, how do we know? I mean, get us a police report. There isn't one. And they go, okay. So that's kind of tough. Do you ever get the urge to drive a wrecker again? Yes. I have not driven a wrecker in a long time. And back when I drove a wrecker, a tow truck, we had two at the gas station, one of which was a clutch, a manual transmission, big old ugly beat up. It was already old and beat up when I got there in 1979. And it had a creeper first gear. So you could literally put it in first gear and get out and walk along next to it while I was idling, but it also had a real sketchy emergency brake. So you're always careful when you're working on it. You put the e-brake on, you never got behind it or underneath it because it might roll over and kill you. And so I actually learned to drive a clutch while driving that wrecker. And I towed, I'm guessing 50, maybe 100 vehicles, maybe more. I don't know. I never counted with that and the other wrecker that we had that was an automatic. And it's not as interesting to tow vehicles with an automatic transmission wrecker because all you do is you hook something up and it's like driving with a trailer, right? But the interesting thing is always showing up at the scene of an accident and seeing cars that are bent and mangled and trying to figure out, how do I tow this out of here without doing any more damage to that vehicle, or without hurting somebody in traffic, or without damaging the wrecker itself, or without hurting myself. I remember getting up at 3:00 in the morning and getting called to a scene of an accident and coming out there, and there's gasoline dripping from the vehicle and trans fluid dripping from the vehicle and battery acid. I remember, you're half asleep anyways, 3:00 in the morning, and hooking up a vehicle and driving and feeling this burning sensation on my arm and realizing I had battery acid that dripped on my arm while I was hooking stuff up, and, generally speaking, a burning sensation on your body might be a problem. I had to get back to the dealership or the gas station and rinse my arm off, and for a while I had this splotch on my arm from the battery acid. So there you go. Brother got ticket for not using a turn signal in left turn only lane. Is there such a thing? Yes. You need to use a turn signal whenever you're turning. It doesn't matter what lane you're in. I mean, presumably, if you're in the left turn lane, it indicates that you know that you need to turn left. But the problem, of course, is someone coming towards you might not know that's a left turn lane. So anytime you're going to turn, indicate. And by the way, remember that the turn signals aren't just there so you can comply with the law. The turn signals are there so people ahead of you and behind you can guess what you're going to do. It's very, very difficult to be a mind reader. And I hate it when someone's coming towards me and all of a sudden they turn with no indicator. And it's like, hey, it would have been really helpful if you'd had a turn signal on right there, my friends. So what do you think of the song WOLD by Harry Chapin, Wayne Eggerman? You know, I'm not a huge Harry Chapin fan. The songs are like kind of old, long, dreary, taxi, cat in a cradle kind of thing. And I was not a huge fan, but, you know, I like the fact that it's a song about radio playing old songs. So there's something about the oldies stations. I worked at a whole bunch of different oldies stations and always enjoyed the oldies. So that's one of the reasons I've got such a great nostalgic thing where I can remember really, really strange old songs. Let's see here. WKRP. Yeah, we've talked before about WKRP in Cincinnati. Great TV show. Great homage to life in radio. There you go. Hand signals. Yeah, I use hand signals when I'm riding my bicycle, primarily because I know that many people in cars don't pay attention. So if I'm about to turn, I know that technically speaking, when I do this, you're supposed to actually do this, but most drivers don't know what this is versus this, which is I'm turning right, I'm stopping. And so if I'm about to turn, I turn my head, make sure they see me, and I do one of these, and then I turn. And if I'm turning left, I do one of these, and just as obvious as I can. So there you go. Shane Bush, I thought turkeys could fly. I believe the entire sentence is, as God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly. Somebody actually sent me that a couple days ago because of the approaching holiday on Thursday. Steve, what are some songs that get stuck in your head frequently? You wouldn't believe me if I told you. They're usually very, very oddball songs. One of them is Out in the Country by Three Dog Night. And one of them is Midnight Rider by the Allman Brothers, the opening line. And I can't sing, so I won't do it. But the opening piece of music of that, that gets stuck in my head, and it'll be there for days. I can't dislodge it. And similarly, Out in the Country, there's the refrain from that. Before the breathing air is gone, before the sun is just a bright spot in the nighttime. I don't know why. Those two lines get stuck in my head. Little known fact, of course, the song's written by Paul Williams, but another story altogether. So there you go. Did you ever play Video Killed the Radio Star before MTV? No, and I never worked at a radio station that would have formatted that, and that's sad. But you know, the Buggles, the band that did that, was a wonderful band. I've got their, I've got a CD of their music. They've got another song called "I Love You, Miss Robot," which I jokingly mentioned a couple times in reference to the woman who does the intros and the outros on my shows now, because I jokingly called her Miss Robot. And nobody caught that as far as I know, but great song by the Buggles. And there's a lot of nostalgia right now about the new music that came out in the 80s and 90s, now 40, 30 years later. And if you go on the internet right now, you can find a really, really cool video of the Buggles in the last couple of years redoing Video Killed a Radio Star live on stage, live band, and it's fun to watch because now the guy, take the guy who had the hit in 1981 and add almost 40 years to him, and he's up on stage and he sounds identical. That's one of the cool things about human voices, right? Is you can age, but the voice often stays the same. And you can watch that. And if you're into that, the other one I highly recommend is A Flock of Seagulls redid Space Age Love Song with, I believe, the Prague Philharmonic. And if you go onto YouTube and type in Space Age Love Song Prague, you'll find this really, really cool remake these guys did. And again, remember what they looked like back in the day with that wacky hair the guy had, the guy from the Flock of Seagulls. And you see him today, and, a little older, a little grayer, a little larger, sound just like that, except that they've got the full orchestra and it's wonderful, wonderful stuff. It's one of the amazing things about YouTube is how you can get stuff like that, and it works out. So I just checked. I'm at 99,879. So I need 100 subscribers, 121 subscribers to hit 100,000. We're getting close, but like I said, in about 25 minutes, the video with the 100,000 story is going up. So that'll be following this about 5 minutes later. There you go. When I was in radio, we called them a flock of haircuts. There you go. There's always those bad joke names, men without hats. I remember them being called men without talent. But Safety Dance is a great song. So, I've mixed feelings about things like that. Checking in from Melbourne, Florida, formerly from Grand Rapids, Kentwood, Zealand, and Holland. I do the same hand signals when I ride my bicycle. Yeah, and I've had some close calls on my bike and also close calls running, and it's sad because people in cars need to pay more attention for pedestrians, whether they're bicyclists or runners. And I did a video where I almost got killed by a guy, just literally a guy who shouldn't be on the road anymore, just an old guy, wasn't paying attention, claimed he couldn't see me. I was wearing a bright neon yellow shirt. He actually said I couldn't see you, and I'm like, can you see me now? Like, what? Am I invisible? But, unfortunately, you have to be proactive about your own safety, not just I follow the law, I follow the rules. It's also, and I watch out for idiots because one idiot might kill me if I'm not paying attention. So there you go. Let's see here. Steve, here's a good trivia question. Who played the... Oh, I can back this up. Hang on a second. Who played the radio DJ in Reservoir Dogs? I hate to tell you, I haven't seen the movie. I have not seen Reservoir Dogs. Sorry. That's what I get for backing up and finding a question. I don't know the answer. There you go. So, greeting from Statesboro. I believe the Allman Brothers. Didn't they spend some time down there in Georgia Way? Yeah. I actually Stephen Wright was a DJ. Interesting. I did not know that. He would have made a great DJ. He probably still would. I love Stephen Wright. I've seen Stephen Wright in concert, and one of the funniest guys out there. I love his sense of humor. He's got such an abstract sense of humor. One of my favorite Stephen Wright jokes. Everyone always tells the same Stephen Wright jokes over and over again, but one of my favorite ones that you don't hear repeated over and over again is that he claimed he wrote his graduation thesis answering the question, who financed the building of the pyramids? And he said that at the end, he came to the conclusion it was a guy named Vinny. So let's see who here is not in the US or Canada. If you're representing from someplace else, please check in. And please do that. Will there be a reward for subscriber 100,000? Well, when we cross the 100,000 mark with the video, there is something in the video that indicates that there is, in fact, a reward of sorts for some people. There you go. Favorite instrumental by Bill Van Ram. Celtic Excavation by Van Morrison. I love Van Morrison. And it's interesting because most of the musicians I admire don't do instrumentals. And Celtic Excavation, I forget that's off of Poetic Champions Compose. Right around there, though, is an instrumental called Celtic Excavation, which is just stunningly beautiful. And I have an immense amount of respect for Van Morrison. I like a lot of his stuff, but I like that in particular. So when it comes to instrumentals, that would be the one I would say. So, Antti is in Finland, as is Pikaniska, Finland. I'm probably mispronouncing that. Got someone from Mexico, another Finland. And do I know where Jimmy Hoffa is, Jeremy Chattanooga? No, but I drove by the restaurant yesterday where he disappeared from. And the restaurant's not there anymore. But the last place he was seen that they can identify was that restaurant. And I drove by there yesterday, just coincidentally. It's about 5 miles from where I grew up and about 8 miles from my office. But Jimmy Hoffa disappeared. And I suspect that he not only disappeared, but he's long gone, meaning that I don't think they'll ever find him. I don't think they'll ever find body. I don't think they'll ever find anything except, a couple old guys in later years are going to say, yeah, I know what happened to him. but they're going to have conflicting stories, so no one's going to ever be able to prove anything. But trust me, I don't think they'll find him. Nico Pesala, Finland. Raddy's in England, left of London. There you go. Shane Bush says he may have probably gotten chopped up. I think chopped up was the beginning of it. I think he was incinerated myself. But Brown-Eyed Girl, Cliff Hartle. You know, that's the problem with oldies stations. I have this discussion with my brother all the time because he lives in an area that's got an oldies station. And there's like 5 songs they play every hour, almost on the hour. Brown-Eyed Girl is one of them. Go Into the Chapel by the Dixie Cups is another one. There's certain songs radio stations should stop playing. And the problem is that they've done the research and they go, it's better to play a song that people know but don't hate versus one they might not immediately recognize. So they just play these same million times I heard it. I don't need to hear it again. I do not need, I can name for you 30 songs by Van Morrison that are better than Brown-Eyed Girl. 20 of them could be played on the radio and nobody would punch the button. But when I hear Brown-Eyed Girl come on the radio, I'm like, and I don't want to hear it again. So it's too much. Trade Commission. Look at my thing yesterday, and we will talk about that. So we need some more lawyer jokes. Norman Franklin. We actually don't. And I'm not, don't take this the wrong way. I asked for lawyer jokes, and I got hundreds and hundreds of emails. Some of them 2 or 3 times. I got some of them 50 or 60 times. And it's in the field of lawyer jokes. So that's what I'm looking for. There you go.